you and I were talking yesterday, and you were telling me about, way back when you recruited Horace and Harvey Grant out of Hancock Central, and it occurred to me that, obviously nobody has the knowledge that you have when it comes to the great players from this area, basically in the last half century. So first, tell me what you think about Derrion Reid, and then let's get your opinion on where you think he might fit in before it's all said and done when it comes to the greatest players to come through this area.
Derrion Reid is a very special player, as you very well know, Chad. And not only compare him to some of the best players in this area, in the CSRA or the Metro Augusta area, but probably in the state of Georgia as a whole. If there's one player I could probably compare him with, would be Sharif Rahim, Abdul Rahim from Wheeler High School in Atlanta. In 1994 or 3 or 4, I had, was it early 90s with USA basketball. I recommended that Rashid Abdul Rahim be one of the players invited to the USA 18 and under trials, who later on went that year to play in Argentina. Clint Haskins and I coached that team. Clint was the coach at that time at the University of Minnesota, and of course I was the coach at that time at Augusta College. And I watched Wheeler High School play in the state championship game at Georgia Tech. And Rahim was a tremendous player, went on to play at California, drafted, and so forth and so on. So as a player, he reminds me of him. I think the very interesting thing about Derrion is that his basketball is still very much in front of him. I think he's 6'7" now, but I think he will top out at 6'10" or 11. He's got big feet. He's got big hands. He has the ability to play inside and outside. One of probably the least thing that people know about his game, he's a very good passer. So that means he has exceptional IQ. Without a doubt, he's the best player in this area since Dominique Archie at Josie. He's the best forward player. He's kind of a 3-4 guy. He don't mind playing against bigs, but yet he can take it outside. He can stick the jumper. He can put it on the floor. And that's why I think he's drawing the interest of most of the Power 5 schools across the country, especially in our part of the country. The ACC and the SEC schools are all very interested because a number of those coaches has called and inquired about what I might know about him. Now, with all that being said, I think the thing that puts him above is that he comes from an exceptional family. His mother, Marie, has done an unbelievable job in raising him, and she was quite a basketball player herself. Played at Richmond Academy and on to Memphis and then to South Carolina State. And her daddy, his granddaddy, and her daddy is probably as big a basketball fan as there is in Augusta. I know for years he never missed an Augusta State or Augusta University game, and still can be seen at a lot of the games at Augusta University today. And plus, he's a basketball buff, and the whole family is into basketball. But above all that, he's a 3.667 student, and he's an exceptional student, exceptional young man. I had an opportunity to have him in camp when he was a little boy. I guess he was 6 or 7 years old, and he just continues to get better. And so I think when it all shakes out, he'll be one of the best to ever come out of this area. There's no doubt about it. We've had some good ones. We've had some real good ones, from Jeff Sanders to, Will Avery, Ricky Moore, the big guy over in Aiken a couple of years ago. And we've had some very nice players. There's no doubt about it, that have played at all levels of college basketball, from NAIA to Division I and Division I at the highest level. But I think when the smoke clears, he will be one of those kids that stands out in the top 10 that ever come out of this area, just because I think he's so much ahead of him and his ability to play. You know, nowadays, Chad, I mean, kids play so much basketball, and he having the opportunity to be involved in the Peach Jam, which is still considered the best amateur youth basketball, the EYBL, Elite Youth Basketball League in the country, and show his skills there. Playing on an exceptional high school team for an exceptional high school coach, to win a state championship as a sophomore and could win it as a junior and a senior would be unheard of and unparalleled in this area. But he's very capable of it because they have a very good team and surrounded by some very good players as well. So I think the sky's the limit, Chad. I think we will all enjoy watching his development and his growth over the next 2 years of his high school career. And then even after getting to college, having the ability to grow and to expand. What's interesting now is that, as you know, so many kids are thinking they're one and dones and, you know, go to college for 1 year and then off to the NBA and all of that. I don't know if Derrion would be one of those kids to do that, but at the same time, I wouldn't be in any hurry to do that because, again, I think by his junior, senior year of college, he's going to be really, really special, you know, especially if he grows and he's, you know, he puts on some weight and all of a sudden he's 6'10" or 11 and 7 foot, you know, a couple of 100 pounds or so. He's going to be something to reckon with because his basketball skills are exceptional. And that's the sign of the times. I know he plays enough basketball year-round, and the exposure that you get to playing against good players in high school, playing against good players on the AAU circuit, all of that's just going to add. And his high school coach does an exceptional job with that team. I mean, they practice at a very high level. I've had the opportunity to watch them practice a number of times because they would come to Augusta University to practice before going off to playoffs and stuff like that. So they run a very good practice. They run a college-style practice. So, you know, I don't think anything's going to be new to him or getting to college and feeling like, you know, what an expectation, what it means to work hard. And with all that being said, I think the kid really, really loves the game of basketball. You know, you can just, every time you hear him give an interview or, you know, see the twinkle in his eye, he really likes playing the game of basketball. And so if he continues to improve and grow, because I think basketball is, you know, there's so many kids now are in similar situations, but when they're 16 or 17 or 18 years old, they might get to the point where they don't improve, they don't get any better, you know? But that's the thing about Derrion. Between now and when he's 21 years old, his improvements are going to be at the point where it's going to be off the scales. He reminds me a lot of Harvey and Horace because of his ability to be able to make shots in all areas. People don't understand Horace was a 4-5 player and Harvey was a 3-4 player. Derrion is probably a combination of 3-4-5. There's not a position on the floor he can't guard. And, you know, he can play inside and outside, capable of handling the ball, passing the ball. And all of those skills are going to continue to improve, I believe.
You know, your point about his basketball skills, I agree with so much. The first time I watched him play, it was an 8th grade. He was in 8th grade. He's playing in like a Columbia County middle school championship game for Columbia Middle School, and I couldn't believe he was about 6'3" at that time. And he made 9 out of 10. He made 9 out of 10 free throws, and I'll never forget that. He was up there just swishing free throw after free throw, and for a very, very tall kid as an 8th grader to just go to the line and go 9 out of 10 from the free throw line, that stood out to me. And it's kind of been the story of his first, 2 years of high school, just elite skill. And I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about some things, or taking notes of some things you said. You mentioned, he could finish it. He could become one of the top 10 players to come through the area. You mentioned, the Peach Jam. He played in the Peach Jam. You mentioned coaching Sharif Abdul-Rahim alongside Clem Haskins when in the 90s, and you mentioned and so all those things make me really excited about some things that you and I are talking about doing, where we get your opinion and we use your basketball knowledge to talk about what's going on today. And that's something you haven't been able to do in your role at Augusta University. You've been able to talk about Augusta University for the last, 34 years, but you haven't been able, because of the rules of the NCAA, you haven't been able to talk on record about the high school players that you have seen and that you see play all the time. And so I know you're looking forward to that, right?
Yeah, I'm very anxious, Chad, because I think one of the best kept secrets in all of America is that even though Georgia is considered a football state, which is unarguably true. I mean, football is big in the state. And somewhere like the state of North Carolina is considered a basketball state, meaning high school basketball is really, really good in the state of North Carolina. I think one of the best kept secrets is that we have really good basketball in the state of Georgia. But more importantly, we have really good basketball in Metro Augusta and have had really good basketball for some time. And to be quite honest with you, I think that's the reason that the Peach Jam tournament, Nike tournament, has been here for over 25 years. I think this will be the 27th or the 28th year. We bought it here in 1996, and I was very fortunate to be a founding member along with Eddie Myers to find the Nike Peach Jam tournament. And what made it different is that the people here in Augusta really support the game of basketball, and you can just tell by some 30-some years ago when Thompson played West Side in that game at Augusta College at that time, where there was a line wrapped around the building at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 deep, of people trying to get into that game. And now you look at the kind of crowds that show up to a West Side Butler game last year, or a West Side Thompson game, or a West Side whoever. I mean, the caliber of basketball that's played in this town. But again, I think the people here have a great appreciation of golf, and what helped them have a great appreciation of golf, of course, is the Masters, the Augusta National, and that golf tournament they have every year that has Augusta on the world as the golf capital of the world. But the second leading money maker in the Augusta area for a sport event is the Nike Peach Jam. And I think that shows, again, that people really, really think a lot of basketball in this area. If you remember, you were young, very young back during that time, but the first game of the Peach Jam in 1996, there was an international team showed up here with Yao Ming and Derek Ulinsky and Parker from France, and the kid from
probably like, was it Stojakovic maybe?
Stojakovic. And the kid that played the player that played for San Antonio all those years from Argentina that really, really played. All of them came here. Ginobili. They were all on that international team that came here. And remember, we had a team of local players: Tyrone Shine, Rick Moore,
Antoine Den, Donald Little.
Yeah, and Donald Little, 6'10", went to Cincinnati. Remember? Oh my God. So in that night, because the local team had not played any competition, getting ready for the Peach Jam, played an exhibition game against the international team, and we won. If you remember, Antoine Bent had 38 points, and so and the place was sold out in North Augusta to see that game. So again, I think it just shows and proves that this area is a basketball hotbed and has been a basketball hotbed for years. And if you look last year alone, to say, well, West Side won a state championship. Augusta Christian ran a state championship. Grovetown won a state championship. The team out in Cross Creek has won 2 state championships.
Yes.
Man, you just man, that's pretty strong, and in a state where people, for whatever reason, think that the only big time basketball is being played in Metro Atlanta, and years ago, Chad, when you was very, very young, back in the early '90s, there was no better basketball being played in the state of Georgia, in the Southeast, than Albany, Georgia. And
that's so
years
true.
before that, in the '80s, there was no better basketball being played in Macon, Georgia. Some of the Southwest Macon teams, and Malone and Terry Fair and Michael Hunt, and that team went 38-0, 36-1, I think, back-to-back years, something crazy like that, playing for Donald Duck Williams. And it just goes, but basketball in Albany is not as good as it used to be. Basketball in Macon is still good, but not as good as it used to be. But consistently over the last 35, 40 years, basketball in Augusta has probably even gotten better. And I think the reason it's gotten better is because the kids since 1996 have been able to witness some of the best high school basketball players in the country coming here for the Nike Peach Jam. And I don't think it's no coincidence that, we've had Aquinas win a state championship over there. Ahmed Hill played here, went on to have a great career at Virginia Tech. And, we've had some really good basketball players come through the greater Augusta area. And people talk, and I missed it, but they said there was a guy named Kelly that played at Laney, was probably one of the best that the old-timers say they've ever seen. And so it just, again, so I think Derrion Reid is a product of all that history and legacy of good basketball, and he's coming about as the time. I think right now, I read somewhere that ESPN, somebody has him ranked in the top 60 players in the 24 class or something. But you can mark my word, by the time the class of 24 graduates, he'll be one of the top 10 or 15 players in that class, because he's going to continue to grow. He's going to continue to improve. And with that, it's going to become, everyone's kind of excited about the recruiting process now, and all the teams that's showing interest now. You just wait for a year from now. Wow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we get to hear from you on these topics. You bring the perspective that none of the rest of us could bring. I remember those Macon teams. I remember those Macon players and teams, and those Albany players and teams, and then Atlanta in the early 90s, Augusta was kind of every bit as good as what Atlanta was doing at that time. And then just to kind of cap off what you're saying about Augusta being consistently as good or consistently great over the decades, we're talking about Derrion, and it just so happened that last year in the Elite Eight over at Grovetown High School, the team that they beat to proceed to eventually win the state championship was Wheeler High School, who you started off talking about with Sharif Abdur-Rahim. They beat Wheeler High School in the Elite Eight last year. And who did Wheeler High School, who were they led by? Well, that's a kid named Isaiah Collier. He's the number one player in the nation right now, according to all the recruiting sites and what have you. And our guys from over there in Grovetown, took them out in the state tournament last year, and they're going to try to take them out again. They've got them on the schedule again this year. And to your point about Cross Creek, well, two straight state championships. They've got an incredible player over there named Antoine Lorick. And a couple of years ago in that first state championship game, he shut down the guy, Jabari Smith, who was the second pick in the draft with the Rockets, played at Auburn last year, comes out of Sandy Creek High School. And so, like I said, it's great to get your perspective because you remind me, as we're talking, you remind me of all the instances where these Augusta guys went head-to-head with the best of the best and prevailed. And, I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but hearing you say it, with the amount of background and knowledge that you have about our game, it just really gets me excited. I can't wait to do it, a lot over the next several weeks and months as basketball season gets going and, gathers steam. So thank you for, having this conversation with me here today, and I hope we have a whole bunch of them coming up real soon.
You can count on that, Chad. I appreciate you, and thanks for everything, and thanks for your support of basketball in this area at every level. I don't think people understand is that you have been a supporter of basketball through your organization, Augusta B-Ball, for all levels of basketball. That's from the little kids playing recreation games and junior high games until they go to high school and on into college and follow them and then on even into the NBA. And I think that gives us an opportunity in Augusta to really appreciate the great game that it is. And basketball is a great game. And I've had the opportunity to coach it at every level. And I tell people a lot of times one of my best experiences was being able to represent USA basketball and to win 2 gold medals in 18 and under and 22 and under championships, and have the opportunity to coach some of the best players, not only in our country, but some of the best players in the world, and to see some of the best basketball, to watch the Australian national team play, the Chinese national team, the French, the Spanish national, Italian national teams. And that's why a number of guys down in the pros that you see are from those countries, because basketball is that big.
Yes.
Oh,
okay, Coach,
right,
have
brother.
a great weekend.
I appreciate you. Thank you. All right, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye.